First at 5. From the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications, you're watching WUFT News.
Deputies in Marion County made nearly 36 arrests in response to an undercover sting operation that targets child sex predators online. This is WUFT's First at 5. I'm Noelimary Suarez.
And I'm Charlize Ramos. Officers pose as 13 to 15-year-olds on the internet to meet up with and catch these predators. I attended today's press conference with the sheriff, who says this was one of the largest busts for the department. In a press conference this morning, Sheriff Billy Woods named 8 of the offenders that have been caught. Body cam footage from the deputies show the unsuspecting moments the suspects were arrested. Investigators say several of them work with children and others are not United States citizens. Woods also called on parents to be aware of what their children are doing online.
But if you're not being a parent and you're not being nosy, if you're not getting into their business, if you don't know who everyone that they know are talking to online, who they are playing with on games online, then you're part of the problem as well too.
Woods says that it only takes minutes for these predators to reach back out to officers. He credits the crime rate dropping in Marion County over the last 7 years because of operations like these.
Storm clouds are starting to form over north central Florida. Let's get right out to meteorologist William Maxham live in the weather studio, timing out when the rains will start to hit our area.
Yeah, we got rains already in some parts of the area. Alachua County has seen a couple of little showers cross over I-75 the past half an hour or so. Now those storms well to the east. Most of the heaviest stuff has been well east of I-75, closer to the coast, and that's where we think the strongest storms are going to be through the rest of the evening. Temperatures, they're right around the low 90s and upper 80s, depending on if it has rained or not. But where it has not rained, that heat and humidity is combining to make it feel excessively hot. A heat advisory is in effect until 7 p.m. for the entire panhandle. That does include Dixie County. Our heat pretty intense, but just not quite as high as it is just to our north. Temperatures will fall into the 70s through the evening as showers fade away. And tomorrow, expect another round of storms coming our way. More heat that's going to be borderline dangerous, but also the tropics are getting a little more active. We'll have latest in a few minutes.
As Florida moves into the thick of hurricane season, former State and Federal Emergency Management Director Craig Fugate spoke in the state capitol earlier today. Fugate says uncertainty following a potential storm is one of the main issues facing Floridians this year, given the rising costs to rebuild and availability of homeowners insurance. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has forecast up to 25 named storms this year, with as many as 13 reaching hurricane strength and 4 to 7 packing Category 3 or stronger winds. So far, there have been 3 named storms this year. Fugate says the state is prepared to deal with potential storms, but he cautions that many residents are not.
The response will be what we would expect from Florida. A bigger problem in rebuilding is going to be financing, especially in the private sector, and the availability of insurance.
As of Tuesday afternoon, Florida remains in the potential path of a storm system in the Atlantic Ocean that could become better formed later this week. A potential path for the storm includes most of Florida, except for the Panhandle.
Vice President Harris hits the campaign trail today in battleground state Georgia, while Republican nominee former President Trump prepares to court black voters. And as Alice Barr reports, both campaigns are putting big bucks behind their messages.
Vice President Kamala Harris looking to put Georgia back in play with a rally tonight in Atlanta as her campaign works to define its message in a first major ad buy.
The one thing Kamala Harris has always been: fearless.
The Trump camp branding her a failed border czar in its new ad out today.
Failed, weak, dangerously liberal.
While in a new interview, former President Trump criticized the vice president's record as prosecutor.
She put thousands and thousands of black people in jail.
The former president expanding his outreach to black voters, speaking tomorrow at the National Association of Black Journalists convention in Chicago. I spoke to the Republican National Committee's head of faith engagement about the growing number of black men giving Donald Trump a second look.
They look at Donald Trump and they say, look, I was doing better the 4 years that he was president.
He calls it a political calculation as Vice President Harris works to win those voters back.
If African Americans begin to split their vote more, I think what they'll see is they'll see people fighting for their vote more.
Former President Trump also defending his running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, over his controversial 2021 comments, calling some Democrats childless cat ladies.
He's not against anything, but he loves family.
Vice President Harris expected to announce her pick for running mate within the next week, with Michigan Senator Gary Peters, a union favorite, emerging as a new contender.
She's going to make a decision that's right for her and right for the country.
As the fight for every vote ramps up in a tightening race. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
And today, Marion County officials started testing its voting machines ahead of the August 20th primary election. Election officials say the testing took place this afternoon at the Marion County Election Center. Testing is done to make sure ballots are being counted and sorted correctly before each election. A canvassing board and members of the public watch as the machines accept test ballots. Once confirmed that they work correctly, they're sealed until the election. Alachua County tested its equipment on July 23rd.
Police in Ocala need your help finding the suspect who stole thousands of dollars worth of sunglasses from the Paddock Mall. Take a good look at the picture on your screen. The theft happened at the Sunglass Hut. Investigators say this man stole more than $2,000 worth of goods from the store. If you recognize him or have any information about the theft, you're asked to call the Ocala Police Department.
A federal judge has struck down part of Florida's so-called Stop Woke Act, saying one provision violates free speech rights. The judge issued the ruling last Friday. Governor Ron DeSantis signed the legislation into law in 2022. It restricted workplace trainings about race. Several Florida businesses challenged the law. The judge who made the decision had temporarily blocked the law from taking effect in 2022, and on Friday he issued a permanent ban, saying the law violates the First and 14th Amendments to the Constitution. DeSantis reacted to the ruling, arguing Florida has a right to provide protections for the employees, and said woke trainings discriminates against people on the basis of race.
Coming up next when First at 5 returns, summertime means tough choices for some military families. The two reasons researchers say they have trouble keeping food on the table this time of the year.
And tempers flared as the new acting Secret Service director testified before Congress, why he is now to blame for the failed assassination attempt of former President Trump.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
In a congressional hearing today, the acting director of the U.S. Secret Service addressed security failures leading up to the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump in Pennsylvania earlier this month. Ronald Rowe told the Homeland Security and Judiciary Committees that the agency is adjusting how it approves security measures. He also admitted that he cannot defend how the gunman was able to get on the roof that day to threaten the Republican nominee's life.
He did have concealment. And then ultimately gets into firing position and fires. And within 15.5 seconds of his first shot, he's neutralized.
Rowe took charge of the Secret Service after Director Kimberly Cheadle resigned last week. That came after she could not provide clear answers to the members of Congress over the same issue of security lapses. In several interviews, Cheadle said the Secret Service failed in its job to protect Trump that day and took full responsibility.
Summer tends to put food insecurity spotlight as millions of families work to try to make up for free or reduced price school meals while class is out. Research shows that active duty military families and veterans can be at particular risk for food insecurity with challenges to income and unexpected expenses. Karen Kaifa has details about where families can turn to for options.
Prices have eased at the supermarket, but more than 3 years of elevated inflation took a toll.
It's staggering how many veterans who've served our country are struggling with food insecurity. It's also staggering how many people who are still in uniform, who are actually on active duty today, are experiencing food insecurity.
A 2023 report from the RAND Corporation found about a quarter of Army, Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard personnel were food insecure. And the Department of Veterans Affairs cites findings that 1 in 9 working-age veterans lived in food insecure households between 2015 and 2019. The VA was joined by the U.S. Department of Agriculture for a summit last week to highlight resources for veterans.
Younger transitioning veterans, and then right after that are women veterans. Those are the two groups that we see have the highest risk of being food insecure.
Feeding America finds veterans and active duty military families can face similar obstacles to putting food on the table, like lower incomes and challenges to finding steady work either for active duty spouses or for veterans entering civilian life. Christine Going of the VA Food Security Office says access can be a hurdle too.
It's very often driven by economics, but it's also driven by things like transportation.
The goal of VA programs and specific military programs by groups like Feeding America is to help remove the stigma of asking for help.
You don't need to view hunger as your personal challenge. There is a network of people in this community that are standing ready to help you.
In Washington, I'm Karen Kefa.
Record heat is set to drive the cost of fruits and vegetables higher. Inflation in the U.S. has been cooling since hitting a 4-decade high. But it's been one of the hottest summers on record for much of the country and even the planet. The Earth experienced the hottest day in recorded history last week. That can mean shoppers will likely end up paying higher prices for fruits and vegetables as farmers shoulder higher growing costs from the heat. It's a reversal of a trend seen over the past year, with the cost of fruits and vegetables dropping by 1%.
Thunderstorms again are lighting up the radar around north central Florida, but the tropics are getting more active as well. I'll have your forecast next.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
Welcome back. Hit and miss thunderstorms are popping up all around the region. Some heavier rain now coming down around the villages. Lots of lightning and thunder here as well. Further north near Ocala, we're seeing a couple sprinkles, some lightning and thunder there, but activity kind of widely scattered in nature for the next couple of hours. That should be fading away as we get later into the evening. Some lightning strikes here right around Land's End. And this area of storms going to continue to push slowly to the east, but I think the majority of the area actually going to escape rainfall this evening, but it hasn't been easy to escape over the past week. We've seen numerous storms and they've been bringing us a good healthy dose of rain. We've got some numbers that are pretty impressive over the past week. 6 inches, Fort McCoy, 5 inches in Ocala, and zooming in to Alachua County, parts of Gainesville over 7 inches in the past 7 days. That rainier than normal forecast will stick around for the rest of this week into the weekend, but I think storms should be slowing down pretty quickly this evening and will be all done by about 10 or 11 o'clock tonight. But another round of storms should develop in the heat of the day tomorrow. Temperatures into the low 90s and mid 90s. Numerous storms, though, will help break up that high heat tomorrow and cool things down just a little bit. Now, right now, we've got a few clouds over campus here in Gainesville at the UF campus. Temperatures are very warm. We're into the low 90s, but feeling above 100. We do have some folks that are feeling the heat a little more intense into the panhandle, but storms are helping with those numbers. Generally, we're into the 80s and low 90s, but it has felt a little warmer than that across the panhandle. Heat advisory continues until 7 o'clock. This does include Dixie County. It has felt as warm as 110 Cross City this afternoon. 111 is what it has felt like so far today in Tallahassee. 107 Gainesville. Very intense heat, but again, storms should break that up over the next few days. In the afternoons, we're watching this area here where there is a medium chance, a 60% chance of a tropical system developing into the next 7 days. That includes the Bahamas and the peninsula of Florida, but the storm itself actually is far away from there. This tropical wave here to the east of the islands is the one that is expected to be developing over the next week. The reason for the delay, it's encountering some dry air here, and that's slowing down its development, but conditions will change over the next few, and by the time we get into the weekend and to early next week, storm could be either here or here, depending on which computer model you look at. That actually does match up pretty well with history this time of the year. Both sides of the state pretty much equally favored for storms to develop, something that we're going to watch very closely. Again, that should be happening within the next week. No storm there just yet. Through the rest of the day tomorrow, we've got a temperature that's going to once again peak into the low 90s, but it's going to feel above 100. And we do have some of those heat advisory in effect for tomorrow afternoon as well, where numbers are likely going to be into the 105, 108 range, most of that into the panhandle, but Dixie County also included. Heat stays intense through the weekend, and scattered storms will be the only thing that does break up that high heat. We'll be into the low to mid 90s into the afternoon. And checking out that 7-day forecast, that unsettled and hot pattern continues. Temperatures into the low to mid 90s all the way through the weekend into next week, with storms possible each day.
Coming up in sports, Inner Gainesville KF begins to make their mark on soccer culture in Gainesville. And Gator football special teams senior analyst speaks about improvements for this upcoming season. This and more after the break.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
Welcome back. It's time for sports. This summer, Inner Gainesville KF emerged as a semi-professional soccer team looking to bring high-level soccer into the sports narrative here in Gainesville.
Oi pessoal, tudo bem? Meu nome é Adriano.
Bonjour, será tudo? Meu nome é Futebol.
Olá, me llamo Aníbal Muñoz.
Bonjour, mon c'est Hugo.
Moi, Nilson Masson.
These are the voices of Inter Gainesville Club Football, a soccer club that strives to create a strong, positive soccer culture for the Gainesville community. The team just marked its first season competing in the United States Soccer League's League Two, a semi-professional league that forms part of the United States Soccer League system.
I think this club right now is like the biggest like soccer community and soccer club in the area. I think if anyone is serious and like actually wants to pursue soccer, this is like where you need to be, and like it's very fast growing. So I think, yeah, as long as like everyone keeps like working hard, keeping the level high, it'll continue to grow.
Head coach Darnell Bernier, a Haitian American born in New York, founded the club, formerly known as Legacy World FC, in 2021 and quickly rose up the ranks. The club doesn't take the traditional approach to recruiting. Coach Bernier and his staff search for talented players that may not be getting the attention he believes they deserve.
We don't have the prototypical players. There's an abundance of players in the United States. I think that's so important for the soccer world, since USL2 is such a big platform, that I think it's very important to know that there's an abundance of players that are not inside the collegiate level that can contribute at the higher levels of the game.
By bringing talented players of different backgrounds together, Coach Bernier has created a family full of acceptance and determination.
Oh, they like brothers, like family. I've been them like, there's a lot of them, I know them like for 6 years right now. So it's been like a family for me.
Inter Gainesville's end goal is to bring high-level soccer to Gainesville and to give the community's youth professional players that represent them. Their motto, one city, one club, one family. Coming up, Inner Gainesville is getting ready for its youth academies, one of which is coached by team captain Tyler Stopford, to begin their fall season in August. The academy is a pathway used to develop young players to eventually have the opportunity to transition into becoming USL League Two pre-professional players. As the Gator football season approaches, various members of the coaching staff spoke today about the improvements made this offseason. The co-defensive and offensive coordinators both spoke about what they would be focusing on this upcoming season, trying to improve on last year's 5-7 record. The new special teams senior analyst Joe Houston spoke about the changes his role would bring. He mentioned communication changes, the implementation of a launch pad, and a depth of the roster.
The direct line of communication is paramount. That's the biggest role change. Instead of coaching the coaches, now we get to coach the players directly. So that'll be big for us.
The Gators begin practice tomorrow ahead of their first matchup against Miami on August 31st. Lastly, the Tampa Bay Rays play the Miami Marlins tonight at 6:50 at home as they continue to try to stay above 500 on the season.
Honestly, I'm always so impressed by the women's gymnastics.
I know, those athletes are bringing the heat, and it seems like the weather is too, right?
Yeah, the heat is here. It's going to stay here through the weekend into the mid and upper 90s through next week.
Thanks for joining us. We're back here tomorrow for another edition of First at 5.
But your North Central Florida news is always on at WUFT.org and on all of our social media platforms. Have a good night.